Please join me in welcoming Dave Taylor. Dave leads the development and execution of Stella Connect's global marketing and product development strategy. With more than 2 decades of marketing experience and a legacy of success in building high-tech businesses, he was key in transforming WatchGuard Technologies into the most highly awarded company in the network security space. Prior to WatchGuard, Taylor co-founded Sproxent, a roll-up of value-added service providers in the mid-market space, which grew to more than $50 million of annualized revenue within 2 years and has been a major contributor for Landesk and Instructure's success. Dave Taylor will be the first to tell you, regardless of how large and daunting a task may be, you can always execute your way through it. Here's Dave.
Hey everybody, it's awesome to be here at Weave's Business Growth Summit. I'm excited to be here. I really appreciate the invitation to come. It's awesome to get together with groups of professionals and share best practices and learn from each other, so I really appreciate this. As you heard, my name is Dave Taylor. I'm with a company called Stella Connect. I'm the CMO there. We're based in New York City. And I'm going to talk to you today about you can do it, meaning there are things that stand in the way of you accomplishing your objectives in life. I want to talk to you about what some of those things are and give you maybe some frameworks on how to deal with those. I want to talk to you about, first of all, how you can make a decision to make a decision in your life. I think there's so many companies, and not just companies honestly, but people who really get wrapped around the axle when it comes to big, meaningful decisions in their life. I think it's unnecessary. In many ways, I actually think it's destructive to people and to companies. And I do have experience working at companies that have reached, what some people call analysis paralysis, where they kind of grind to a halt, waiting for somebody or something to give them all the answers they need and all the data they need to finally make an informed decision and move on. So I'm going to give you 3 quick things that I think will help as you make important decisions, life decisions, business decisions, etc. You all know, I'm sure, the phrase by the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, who said, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." In fact, I think they made a great movie out of that as well. The point that he's making is you never end up where you want to go unless you're willing to kind of reach out and take that first step. You rarely have all of the information that you're going to need right at first. The challenge that we have in our lives is, do we have enough information? There's never enough. There's never all. But do we have enough to kind of finally make a decision and take that first step? The reality is, in business, you often don't know what information you need to have until you start down the path. I'll give you an example of this. Many years ago, I was in marketing. I was a product manager over some computer technology, and there was a brand new market category and a real race between 4 or 5 competitors to kind of get to the market. And so many of the companies that we were in competition with, as they moved down the path of releasing their product, there was so much research being done, and we were all using the same analyst groups and sharing research back and forth. We made the critical decision to launch first and launch fast. I know right now, looking back, I know that we weren't quite ready for it, but we got our product out into the market a good 4 months before our competitors did. It was so critical for us because by the time our competitors came sweeping into the market, we were already on version 2 of our software and our hardware, and it really gave us a competitive leg up in the market. Looking back on that now, I think, that was probably a risky thing. We could have developed a reputation for releasing unfinished hardware, unfinished software. But the reality was we had something that was good enough for that moment in time, and we wanted to get in the market, get into the customer's hands, and start to gather that feedback from them. And so really, I know it may sound very, very simplistic, but knowing when the time is right, knowing when the data is sufficient, maybe not perfect, but sufficient, in order to take that first step and get moving. That's my step number 1. Take that first step. Now, I want you to keep in mind that I do think it's possible to overdo this. And I'm certainly not recommending that everybody adopt a shoot from the hip or shoot first, ask questions later type strategy. Scattered throughout the British Islands, there are a series of what are called follies. These are towers that were built with people who thought they were going to build big, beautiful castles, built the tower, ran out of money, and the tower still stands. In fact, if you're interested, some of these are available on Airbnb. You can stay in them. But I'm not recommending that everybody move quickly to go build follies out in your business market. But I do think that you do get to a point where the data that you have is sufficient. Take that first step. Second thing for me, aggressively implement your plan. And what I mean by aggressive is Honestly, in business, there's no room for half-heartedness. You have to be all in. And look, I think we're also talking about life. I think in life and in business, you have to be all in. You have to make a decision and then not second guess yourself. When I worked at Intel Corporation a decade ago, they had a really good policy called disagree and commit. Let's have a conversation, let's share all our opinions, but at the end of the conversation, there has to be a decision made, and everybody in the meeting has to commit to doing that. You don't have to agree to it, you just have to commit to doing it. And that's what I think, I mean by let's aggressively start implementing the plan and start moving forward. Now, it is possible to sabotage your result. And what I mean by that is, if you find yourself in a disagree and commit situation, or if you feel that in business or in life you've been pushed into a situation where you're having to execute on a plan that you don't fully agree with, it's possible for you to generate a poor result, to prove your point, to prove that the decision was wrong. But really, why bother? If you're going to do something, do it right, do it all in, and aggressively go after your goal. And I personally have in my life, a way that I kind of force this. And it's the thing that Harrison Ford did in the Raiders of the Lost Ark movie, where he stuck his foot out and took that step. It's the leap of faith that he's talking about. For me, I've made some really important decisions, and you'll laugh when I tell you this, by tossing a coin. And I do that because it's my way of gut checking. I'll say, all right, here's the deal. Heads, I'll take this job. Tails, I'll retire and become a professional musician. And you toss the coin and it comes up heads and you say, great, I'm taking that tech job. Oh man, I really don't feel good about that. You know what I really want? I really want to be a musician. And you go that way. And it's just a way of kind of forcing that gut check, forcing you into a situation where everything relies on what you're going to decide. I'm going to take a stand, and then you kind of check and see how you feel about that. Once you've got your decision made, you're all in on it. There's no room for half-heartedness. The last thing, and I thank Homer Simpson for this one. When the hippies asked him, what's the secret to your long flowing hair? He said it's a 3-step process. Lather, rinse, repeat. Always repeat. And his point is this. You always iterate in life. There's always iterations. You're always refining your decisions and gathering more data and looking for that feedback loop in your life that lets you know whether you've made a right call or a wrong call. And I think that's really true in the business world. Any result that you generate is, from the decisions that you make is critical. Good results are better, but bad results are still good because they help you understand missteps that you might have made. So the process that you think through is, look, I'm going to gather a sufficient amount of data. I'm going to make an informed decision. I'm going to start executing down that path. As the feedback starts to flow back to me, I'll get the sense whether I'm on the right path or the wrong path. That's when you iterate. Iteration really actually unlocks people's willingness to take that first step. People that get in analysis paralysis, people that get stuck on a decision can sit for a long time worrying. If it's obvious to people that it's okay to take a step, it's okay to go down the path, get the feedback and course correct as you go, it does unlock their willingness to get moving forward. You'll also find, in any process that you're working on, that process of refinement and feedback really surprises you. It takes you in areas that you wouldn't know. In my current company, we just closed a deal. It was a very lucrative deal with a company that I never would have predicted would be in our pipeline. And and they ended up there because the feedback that we got as we moved into a new vertical market was, there's a fit. I didn't know in advance. I did my research. I gathered sufficient data. We started into a vertical market, and I didn't know if it would be perfect, but the feedback started coming back positively, and we just closed a huge lucrative deal with a company in that space that 6 months prior I never would have put in the pipeline. Their business case was so far outside our customer proposition, but anyway, they ended up being a great customer for us. So you really never know. I can tell you, for me personally, one of the phrases that I dislike the most is, hey, let's circle around on that and get back together next week. If you can't make a decision on the spot, if you can't put yourself in a situation where you know what you're going to know and you're ready to make the call and move forward, I don't know what another week is going to buy. To me, this is kicking the can down the road another week, and I don't know that it buys you anything. What causes people to get stuck in indecision? There's a couple of things. You read about a lot of this online. Imposter syndrome, and what I mean by that is, Look, regardless of the position that you're in professionally or in your life, you've obviously done something right to get in that position, unless you're watching this from prison, in which case I can't comment. But there's obviously some good steps that you've taken to get in the position that you're in. But a lot of people tend to worry about, am I good enough for this? Am I the right person for this? Are the decisions that I'm making benefiting my company or causing problems for my company? I think you've got to eliminate that sense of, am I good enough? Am I doing the right things? And have the confidence to take steps, make decisions, and move forward. I'm suggesting that in your business career and your life in general, you should have the feedback loop to let you know if you are going down the wrong path. But really, always work from the perspective of, I'm the right person to make this call, I'm the right person for this job, I can make this happen. Decision fatigue. In my personal work life, I say to people, at the end of the day, when they'll come to me with big juicy problems and it's going on 6 o'clock and it's been a long, long day, I'll often say to people, honestly, I don't have the life force for that right now. And what I mean by that is, look, I've spent all of my battery power today making 25 other decisions that needed to be made and that are momentous decisions. I just don't have the ability to do this. It's always okay to push it and come back fresh the next day. Come back at your decision process fresh the next day. Don't make decisions when your willpower is running on empty. And finally, as we talked about, analysis paralysis. I think in today's world, I'm a marketing person. There's so much data available for marketing people today. Compared to 10 years ago, we're overwhelmed with data. There's so much data, it really is considered the paradox of choice. You have so much data that you can use to make decisions that sometimes you get stuck on that data analysis. My suggestion, as I said earlier, is don't wait for perfect data, wait for sufficient data and get going. If you know the quote, you probably know this one already, Theodore Roosevelt. He said famously, in any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The second best thing you can do is the wrong thing, and the worst thing is to do nothing at all. When you're stuck in that mode, when you can't make a decision, when you can't make the call, you've got to come up with a way to force yourself out. And I've got a couple suggestions on how to take yourself out of that problem area. First of all, I know so many people know the Steve Covey quadrant of important to not important and urgent to not urgent. And the Covey team makes very, very strong recommendation. If something is important and urgent, you manage it. If it's important but not urgent, you focus on it. Unimportant and urgent, you avoid it. Unimportant and not urgent, you limit yourself to just a few of those things. These are the 4 quadrants that you work in. And what I'm suggesting is, again, so much of the decisions that you make and so much of the weight that you carry in your organizations, burns your life force. You got to focus that life force in area number 1. And sometimes area number 2. They're both in the urgent quadrant, but really area number 1 should absorb 80% of your decision-making process, your data analytics, your data gathering, etc., and your life force. So keep working in that critical area number 1. Second thing is, I think everybody benefits from having a decision-making framework that they work for. I've already shared with you my decision-making framework is the toss of a coin. By the way, not all the time, not on important issues. But you got to find a framework that works for you. I found a couple of them. Square, the company that does the credit card processing, they have an amazing framework they call SPADE. You can read about it. I stuck the link there. SPADE says, in any situation, you need to analyze the seriousness of the decision, the people that are involved, the effort that it's going to take to, so they've got all of these metrics that you use, and you score each one of those, and then you sum, and that helps you kind of break the log jam on a decision. Jeff Bezos has a really good one that he calls the regret minimization framework. The way he says that is, in big critical life decisions and business decisions, I put myself 20 years in the future and I look back and say, which will I regret the least? And that's the path that he takes. Warren Buffett has one called the Circle of Competence, where he gathers input from people, but only people that have demonstrated competence in the area that he's trying to make a decision in. Anyway, there's all kinds of decision-making frameworks. I really honestly don't know if any of them are better than my coin toss, but anything that helps you kind of gut check and gather the right level of input from people that are around you, I think really is helpful in the process of just getting going. And I also think it's possible to practice making small decisions. Open your mind to making mistakes. Famously Edison with the light bulb, said, and the number varies depending on how often it's been repeated, but he had hundreds of failures before he finally cracked the code. The way he said it, though, is, I didn't have hundreds of failures. I found 100 ways that you couldn't make a light bulb before I finally found the one that you could. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Practice making mistakes. Make a few wrong decisions and see how it feels and get used to what the difference is between the two. So I think these are all things that kind of help break that framework and move you forward. I wish you absolutely all the best in your personal and your professional life. I think having the ability to make good, informed decisions based on the sufficient amount of data, and then corral the resources in your life or in your business to move aggressively down the path that you've chosen. Hey, I think that's an absolute critical key to success in life and in business. And I thank you very much for your time.